fabulous morning. And Reverend Mike is having a fabulous time in Hawaii. He's gifted us with one of his teachers as a speaker, so believe me, you're going to be blessed. Yeah. Dr. Rubin has been a force in this philosophy for a long time. I think that she's known for her absolute expression of the principle. And I thought about it today. You came from an absolute teacher too, Earl Tom Johnson, who taught from the absolute perspective. So I think she's a really clear, dynamic, and very forceful speaker. She brings the principle from our heart. So if you open your heart, your blessings will be many. So help me welcome Dr. Sue Rubin.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Happy Easter. Happy Passover. And anything else you can think of, put that in too. It's all appropriate. So actually, my time at that time was religious science, now more familiarly known as science of mind. I first came when Dr. Kathleen McLaughlin was here. So anybody in Kathy's time? And in fact, I remember sitting here, the classroom, there was a whole other configuration. I remember sitting in the classroom with you,
Right.
taking classes with you, and I remember a seminar that Dr. Raymond Charles Barker did here on prosperity. Anybody? And I remember at lunchtime, we were given a package of either quarters or something, and were told to distribute that and to be aware of people's reactions when we went out to give away this money. And I can remember people go, oh, that's okay. You know, how we resist our good, sometimes very obviously and sometimes subtly. And then when Dr. Maureen was here, that was during the time I spent 10 years forming the first Church of Religious Science in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. And that was in 1985. And when I finished there after 10 years and came back here, Maureen invited me. The very first talk I did after coming from Edmonton was here on Hanukkah, because she realized that I was Jewish and that I could give a Jewish touch to the whole birth of the Christ. So everything is so impeccable, you know, when you realize it. And Easter is particularly important to me because I served when I came back from Canada and took on another permanent ministry, it was with the Westlake Church of Religious Science at that time, now known, of course, as the Center for Spiritual Living. And I did my first formal talk on Easter Sunday in 1996. In 2008, we had Dr. Jim Lockhart. Anybody know Dr. Jim? Well, Dr. Jim, who is now the spiritual leader over at CME, he was my co-pastor at Westlake for 3 years. And on Easter Sunday in 2008, we had a fabulous talk planned. We had the whole scenario organized. And at 6 in the morning, I got a call at home from Jim informing me that he was on his way to Florida because his youngest daughter had been killed in an automobile accident. So I can remember me, you know, thinking, how can I get up there? And then realizing it's Easter. There's an elegance about the way everything happens, not to us, but through us, that can be coordinated and drawn into the real message of the resurrection. And then playing it all forward in Easter on that Sunday in 2009, I delivered the final talk that I gave as minister of the Westlake Center. So in subsequent years, every Easter has had such a deep relevancy, and here I am with you today because Reverend Mike was my student in my Science of Mind 3 practitioner class. At that time, Dr. Maureen wasn't teaching it, and he wanted to continue the momentum, and so he came to Westlake and became part of that group. And how fascinating that Dr. Maureen subsequently went on to Westlake, and Reverend Mike came and stayed here. So, I mean, I just want to remember for myself and to offer that as today's mystical message about rising and shining to everything that Reverend Nancy so beautifully said, that we think we've heard it and we've read it and we know it. Not so. We know as much as we know in this moment, as much as our level of understanding and acceptance will let us receive. And yet that is always just the tip of the finite iceberg, because in its infinite truth, it's an ongoing creative message. And there are so many metaphors and myths and fables, not just the resurrection of the Christ. You know, this is actually a celebration of the festival of spring. Passover is also a celebration honoring spring, the opportunity to truly come alive to something new, something greater than what you and I have experienced, to be able to see beyond existing conditions, to look beyond the crucifixion, to look beyond what really happened after 3 days when it was discovered the tomb of Jesus the Christ was empty. What really happened when he, quote unquote, came back? What is the significance of all of that in my life today? So what is our life about today? For me, it's become a true honoring of that invisible something. The infinite invisible is what Joel Goldsmith always called it. Anybody like Joel's writings? Oh, it's so beautiful. And I recently discovered an essay that he wrote on an Easter message so many years ago. And he often referred to the presence of God as the infinite invisible. Because if we were to look to the finite relative to that which we're seeing, every day it's like, I don't even want to hear the news anymore. I don't want to read it. I don't want to take another calamity, another devastating experience of sadness, of loss. And yet, even within that, I know every headline is a call for prayer. And I know we're all truly looking forward after the sadness of last year's Boston Marathon with the coming together now of the largest marathon that's ever been, and to the ways that this reinforces the indomitable spirit of God, whether you call it the emerging, ever expanding Christ consciousness, whether you call it Buddha nature, whether you call it Emmanuel. In my own world, growing up in the Jewish faith, but observing it from almost a necessity, because I was born and raised in New York City. Any New Yorkers in the room? Oh, there you go, of course. And so for me, Passover was obligatory because I had, and still have as my legacy, a very famous rabbi, philosopher, and author who's truly world-renowned. And my Uncle Louis and my Aunt Adele lived 2 streets away from me in New York City, so that every year it was like no excuse. We come to Passover, we come to all of the observances of the holidays. And so there's the seeds of what really at the time I disregarded and I shed, I wasn't interested. Although I did go to Sunday school and I studied Hebrew for a while, it never had that click as when I walked through these doors and heard the message for the first time. And we've all referred to it, that coming home. that deep sigh of relief that somewhere in me, I may keep looking, but essentially the search is over. Am I wise enough and smart enough to continue on that search, to keep digging the well, at the well that I'm already digging, or am I, as I like to refer to it, do I then say, well, I'm so well informed now, I think I'll be a little spiritually promiscuous and go flitting here, there, and everywhere. Same philosophy can be applied in relationships. Well, this relationship is okay, but maybe if I keep on going, I'll find something better around the next corner. Work, same attitude that we can sometimes hold. This is great, this is nice, I like this a lot, but you never know, so I'll just let my resume float out there and see what happens. Well, I think as metaphysicians and as students of the science of mind, we no longer can get by with saying, let's just see what happens. We know we are the determinants of everything that occurs in our world. And particularly it's what we believe at the subconscious level that becomes the very next experience in our life of people, places, things, and events. So how many of you read Locke's book, Illusions? Many moons ago. I think that was written in the late 70s. Well, it's called Illusions, and it's about the reluctant Messiah. And I believe we're all reluctant messiahs. I think at some human pattern within our subconscious minds, we still think someone's going to come and save us. There ain't no one coming except us. We are the saviors. We are the second coming of the Christ. So he starts the book with this little fable. And the story goes that there was this village of creatures who lived at the very bottom of the Crystal River. And because the currents above them were swirling very strongly, these creatures developed the habit of clinging to the rocks and the limbs of trees that were at the bottom, so that they wouldn't be carried off and tumbled and tossed by the tides. And that was their life. Clinging became their life. Okay, so hold the phone and shift about, oh, what a nice fable. I can just picture it in my mind's eye. No, the idea is, already I'm getting the message. Where do I cling out of familiarity to the rocks? Where is that big stone that was at the head of the tomb where Christ was supposedly buried and safely put away? Where is it that I continue to hold on to something which is in reality keeping me from a greater something? So life went on until finally one of the little creatures one fine day gathered his creatures around him, clinging to their rocks and limbs, and he said, I've had it. If I stay here and continue to cling, I'm going to die of boredom. So I just want you all to know I'm letting go, and I'm letting the tide carry me. Because somewhere deep inside I have a sense that the tide knows where it's going, and it will carry me to where I'm supposed to be. And of course his fellow creatures said, you're crazy. You're going to be really sorry because you'll die not of boredom, but of being thrashed to death by the tides. And he said, so be it. He let go, and he let himself be carried higher and higher up through the tides. And yes, he was tossed, and it became a little painful occasionally. And yet his determination brought him to another colony of creatures who were clinging at that level of the Crystal River to their rocks and their limbs. And they said, oh, wonderful. Look at this creature who looks just like us, but he has risen. He has come for us. He is our Savior. And he said to them, no, you don't understand. I'm not your Savior. All I'm doing is trusting the flow of life because I know that there is an intelligence within it which knows in its constant stream, in its ongoingness, that everything can be better than what we think it is when we're clinging. And so he bid them farewell, and off he went. So what about you? What about me? We know the story of the Christ, just in its literal biblical retelling of the period of Holy Week. Holy Week has been very interesting and predating, because on Ash Wednesday, I suddenly awoke to the realization that I want a course of study for this period of Lent, which leads me up to Passover and to Easter. I want to do something different. And I went to my bookshelf. Anybody have a bookshelf with books like, geez, where'd that one come from? I remember buying it, but I don't remember reading it. So I looked at my vast collection, and what jumped out at me, Keep a True Lent by Charles Fillmore. And of course, Charles Fillmore and Myrtle, don't you love that name, Myrtle? Charles and Myrtle founded the Unity teaching. One of our metaphysical sisters and brothers come from that teaching. And so I picked up the book, and sure enough, for the 40 days of Lent, it had a lesson for each day, a specific idea of Lent to focus on, and a biblical reference to Lent, as well as essays describing the unity approach to conscious mind and subconscious mind, and what they refer to as superconscious mind, which we would know as universal mind, same thing. And very clear messages on denials and affirmations and prayer. And so this became my discipline, my course of study, and it's been just wonderful. And with my Bible by my side, I mean, I have to giggle when I picture myself getting up every morning, because there's a biblical reference, and so every day I'm looking at the reference and I'm reading my Bible. And what I'm learning is, yes, we've had truly enough workshops, enough classes. Now go on the internet. You could spend your entire day attending free seminars on everything, and from wonderful teachers, contemporary teachers. Ken Wilber and his whole theory of integral enlightenment. All of these things are available, but in light of what's going on in the world, I've come to believe that the messages, there's been enough reading, there's been enough conversation. We've examined our innermost nature enough, those of us who are doing that. The time for deeds is now. By your fruits you shall know them. And that means that each of us has a particular niche that we can enter into and claim as my contribution to the family of the earth. What are we waiting for? The things that are occurring around us are simply reflective now of not only the universal intelligence getting our attention through our own personal 2x4s. Anybody had any of those wake-up calls? To say, come on, you say you know who you are. Why is there an incongruency between what you're saying and thinking and feeling and the way you're living your life and what you're doing? Now I think the urgency of the universal need for expansion and a new stage of evolution is powerful enough that the universe itself cosmically is creating the things that we're seeing happen in the world, so that we're being asked now to truly be more consciously aware not only of ourselves and our own personal evolution, but of the collective whole. What does the world need from me to do? I'm on so many wonderful mailings, but some of them are called, it's called Daily Good. And it relates stories, amazing stories of ordinary people who are doing extraordinary things, and yet within the framework of their own life, so that we're not necessarily called upon to drop everything, say goodbye to the house, the kids, the maid, and say, I'm off to wherever. But we are looked to see exactly where we are planted. What is it that I can bring? What is it that I can offer to the world? Where is it that I can stop clinging at the bottom of the river to the things that I think provide me with safety, with security, and with predictability? Where is it that I can truly rise by letting go? We know the power of surrender. You have to have the deep element of faith and trust in the law. Love and law, working together hand in hand. Conscious mind, what we affirm and decree. I am the Christ consciousness, ever alive. Let's say that. I am the Christ consciousness, ever alive, ever greater in my expression. Ever greater in my expression. And then we walk out of these doors, we get back into our car, we go, oh, I'm tired, I'm going to take a nap. And we nod off again, forgetting the significance of the awakened moment. We awake, we fall asleep. Well, I believe that the time has come to stay awake, to stay alert, to offer our gifts of kindness, of generosity, of truth, to not be afraid to go public when we hear the qualities of this life described with doom and gloom and negativity, to still be able to stand in the midst of either strangers, friends, or relatives and say, you know, this is what I believe, that it may not look very pretty outwardly, but I know when we pierce the surface, it can be better, but what it needs are people who think and feel better about themselves and about their relationship with the divine. So on this day that personifies the remembrance of a man who shed. He shed the physicality, the materiality on Good Friday. And we all have to die. God blesses you through you as you. We all have to die to the old, to the rocks, to the security, to the familiarity, to the, yeah, but you don't understand, I'm not 20 years anymore. Neither am I. But I'll be darned if I'm going to let that stop me from making my contribution to fusing with that intelligence, forming this divine alliance, knowing my Father and I are one. I live and practice the presence of God. I am one with the infinite Christ consciousness, the power of truth, the glory of Jehovah, Emmanuel, Allah, Muhammad, Atman, Brahma, whatever you want to call it, it is. There's a mantra in the Hindu Sanskrit that says Tattvamasi, and it means I am that. Tattvamasi. And so I've kind of added on to that. In conclusion, here's what I have to say. I am that. You are that. All this is that, and that's that.